Portland, Oregon, once a city known for its progressive ideals, now ground zero for a growing crisis of encampments, failed promises, and a system profiting from chaos. On streets like Southeast 34th and Powell, industrial corridors are now lined with debris and tents. Residents live next to fires, violence, and unchecked decay. But behind the human suffering is a city that's chosen mismanagement by design.
What happened?
Somebody set the shit on fire.
Why? Did they do it on purpose?
I don't know.
They did it on purpose? Do you know who did this?
The dude that was limp.
What's his name?
He was limp around.
What? He knows who did it.
With zero faith in city enforcement, residents took action. In a few short weeks, a fundraiser raised over $2,000. And on the day of the sweep, we installed 1,300-pound concrete planters ourselves, because we knew they'd be back. These weren't just barriers. They were acts of care, of community, of quiet, determined love. We filled them with flowers, marigolds, daisies, lavender, not just for beauty, but as a message: someone still tends this place. Stock tanks filled with life where pain had taken root. The scent of lavender replacing fentanyl, colour blooming where ash once settled. They restored more than the sidewalk. They restored dignity, safety, the ability to breathe deeply and feel safe while walking home.
And a big question ongoing when it comes to homelessness is, even with resources and beds available, we touched on this a little, but how do you get the people to go to those resources, you know, when they don't want to? That's a big question. I know we do have the camping ban, as you mentioned, the city passed last year. As of January, fewer than 10 people were actually cited or jailed for not moving. How is that going now?
A lot of questions there. So As far as the service-resistant process, here's what I do know, is that 30 or 40% of the people on the street want shelter. So let's at least address that, right? Wouldn't anybody love to know that we have 5,000 people on the street and we're able to care for 2,000 of them just immediately? So let's take care of that right now. As far as I think the laws that you had said, what was the other question?
In January, 10 people. It was fewer than 10. I think it was 8 or 9
right.
people. Do you know if there's more people?
You know, I appreciate you bringing that. We cannot arrest our way out of unsheltered homelessness. So I've really kind of pulled back the officers from doing that, because all you're guaranteeing when you arrest somebody and or cite them or take them into jail is you're ensuring that person's going to be homeless for another day. So let's set up the shelters and provide that shelter right now for those individuals.
So you've asked police not to cite or take them to jail if they're not going to move?
I have clearly focused my conversation with Chief Day. It's not something I'm supporting, arresting people. Let's set up shelter, because we can start really helping those that want shelter into shelter. But we are continue to do camp removals, but we know camp removals isn't a solution. It's just basically a Band-Aid. We need shelter. We need to provide resources. We need to provide connections with loved ones that are, outside of our city or even inside our city.
What about people who are severely mentally ill or addicted to drugs that may not be aware of how to keep themselves safe or sheltered? How do you reach them? Do you think there's a mandatory move that should be happening there?
Well, outreach workers, you've got to build trust with those individuals. And so, at the Portland, we have 5 outreach workers. And so the budget that I'm formulating is going to take that 5 to 15, because we have to create relationships with those individuals and then connect them with the care they need, which could be a family member, which could be behavioral health services at a shelter or a connection, but we've got to keep reaching out to those individuals. Portland Street Response, I just expanded the services there so they can have more services to provide for those people in need, instead of just a bottle of water or a granola bar or something like that, and then driving away. Now we can connect somebody with shuttle to a resource. Super important.
Information on a story that we first told you about at 4 o'clock. A man has been arrested in connection with an early morning fire at a shuttered small business.
Well, Anna and Riel, I'm here out front in front of what was previously Marina's Cafe and Deli. Let me step out of the way here. You can see, since we arrived earlier today, they decided to board up the front of the building so you can't see the damaged insides. And the folks next door at the Dear Sandy Coffee and Cocktail Shop were impacted by this fire as well.
The entire street was blocked off with fire trucks, and there was a lot of smoke in our building. Didn't actually catch fire, luckily, but yeah, really, really smoky, coughing. Having issues with homelessness that had set up an array of shopping carts with a tarp and the whole situation. It was a little concerning, just like as a hazard.
People who work and live here told me they think this was retaliation after the city planned to sweep the camp.
A lot of people don't want them so long in an area because they get comfortable, they start blocking the sidewalks, they start using the sidewalk as a bathroom.
At an apartment complex in Southeast Portland, residents say they've learned how to live neck and neck with their houseless neighbors who camp out front, never thinking they would one day start a fire.
Chaotic. It's been a struggle.
Carla Dominguez says her son's bedroom window is right next to the encampment.
I can't even have my own windows open in my own home because I'm worried about a homeless guy physically abusing his girlfriend, and you can hear it, and them yelling at each other, and and then my son wakes up screaming and crying,
causing her to consistently call the city with no real progress.
Was more stern about it this time because I've called the cops several times and I've never seen them show up.
Never thinking just a day after her last call, that same homeless camp would catch fire.
I heard banging, and by the time I realized, I opened my door and this man comes in. He's like helping me grab my kid, and he was like, "You need to get out of the building because the building's on fire."
The fire started a little before 9 p.m. Saturday night, quickly crawling up the front building located on Southeast Division and 101st. But say about 6 of the apartment units are now unlivable, displacing about 14 people and sparking a wake-up call amongst neighbors.
So we've got to do something because that was really close. I mean, luckily nobody was hurt, but I mean, that came very close to burning down an entire building, and we could have lost people, people's lives.
In Northeast Portland, a homeless camp is scheduled for removal after a series of risk assessments done by the city. A number of parked RVs and other vehicles have caused some unease among neighbors and business owners.
Those living near Northeast Russell Street say it started just after the start of the new year.
There's no parking signs along Russell, and people are parking here.
A neighbor who didn't want to appear on camera tells us it's grown especially worse over the past few weeks.
I noticed that people are leaving their garbage along the side of the road, and the city's picking up the garbage. The city's doing that, but they're not enforcing the no parking sign.
The city of Portland tells us they've conducted 4 separate risk assessments at the location, which sits right across the street from McDaniel High School. Recently, the risk score has come back high enough to warrant a removal. They plan to alert campers about it in mid-April and tow the remaining vehicles a week later. I spoke to multiple campers who didn't want to appear on camera but told me if they're forced to leave, they will simply move to another street.
You know, it started with just kind of one, and then it just kind of slowly builds. Trash and human waste issues. Once in a while, we'll be dealing with vehicles that actually are parked on our premises.
He and other neighboring businesses have called the city multiple times to complain.
We know it's a challenging situation for all, but it has been, incredibly frustrating. How long this has been going on and the lack of answers, frankly, again, for both the neighbors, for the business community, and for the people experiencing the homeless situation. It's been very frustrating.
I'm kind of mixed emotions about it. I don't want to see, people being displaced, but there are no parking signs. That's the law, so the city should enforce that.
68-year-old FedEx worker is thankful to be alive today after she says a homeless woman's dog attacked her last week while on her way to work. She has since undergone several surgeries to save her injured leg.
And we do want to warn you, some of the images of her injury are included in this story. Daisy Caballero spoke with her and her family today.
I was thinking, I don't want to lose my leg, and I want someone to help me.
Giovanni Johnson's life has forever changed after a dog viciously attacked her last Thursday heading to work.
Giovanni says she parked in this parking lot across the street from her job at FedEx office. And as she crossed the street, that's when she says the dog attacked her.
Because you see this dog chomping on my leg, and you are not helping me.
Giovanni says the owner, who appeared to be homeless, was fully aware of what was happening, but she decided not to step in to help.
It was like 4 people, and they're just looking. I said, can you please come and help me? And they did nothing.
5 minutes pass by, and the dog is still attacking her. No idea of when it would all stop.
The more he keeps chopping, the more I feel my leg and my foot going numb. And I had to call 911 for myself.
Giovanni was rushed into surgery and has since undergone 3 procedures. One was an artery transfer from her right thigh, shown in this photo here, to keep blood flow to her injured leg.
That was my first thought. I'm glad she's alive.
LaShonda is Giovanni's daughter and never thought this would be her mom's reality after almost 15 years working for FedEx.
101 thoughts came through because most dogs attacks that I've seen, they've been pretty vicious and sometimes the people don't survive.
LaShonda is beyond thankful her mom's life was spared and is frustrated that animal owners in the Portland metro aren't responsible if they're aware of their dog's aggressive nature. They want to see change at the city and county level when it comes to homeless people and their aggressive dogs.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I think our mayor has failed us. Portland has failed us.
You keep hearing these stories over and over again, and now I'm dealing with it with my mother, and it's not fair. It's not fair.
So you've asked police not to cite or take them to jail if they're not going to move?
I have clearly focused my conversation with Chief Day. It's not something I'm supporting, arresting people.